Hi, I'm Mark Pearson. I'm Executive Director at San Juan Citizens Alliance. As you all know, 2020 has been a really challenging year for all of us. At San Juan Citizens Alliance, we've not been able to hold any of our in-person events this summer and fall, where we get to mingle and talk with our members like you. But we're going to provide you a video update to let you know where things are and where we see things headed in the future. The work of conservation across the San Juan Basin hasn't paused at all despite the COVID-19 epidemic this past year. But we're happy to talk with you about the successes that we've seen about energy transition from a coal economy to a renewable energy economy here in the San Juan Basin, about our successes in cleaning up and restoring the Animas River, our efforts to protect the last remaining wild undeveloped landscapes in the San Juan Mountains and on the Colorado Plateau, how we are working with our members to once again rise up to defend the HD Mountains from a variety of energy development threats, and how we're excited to talk about our new efforts to elevate our work on bighorn sheep and wolf restoration and other wildlife issues here in the San Juan Basin. So join with us. We look forward to letting you know what we've been doing.
Hi, I'm Gary Skiba, the new Wildlife Program Manager for the San Juan Citizens Alliance. The Wildlife Program was established earlier this year. The board and the staff had recognized for years that we needed to have the ability to focus more on wildlife issues. We just didn't have the staff capacity to do it. We were finally able to do that this year, and I started on April 1st, focused on those wildlife issues of most concern for us here in southwest Colorado and northwest New Mexico. A good chunk of my work has been on ballot Proposition 114, which was just passed in the November election. 114 requires Colorado Parks and Wildlife, also known as CPW, to reintroduce wolves to Colorado by the end of 2023. Now that the proposition is passed, CPW will start a planning process that the Alliance expects to be involved in, partly because it's likely that some of the wolves will be reintroduced somewhere in southwest Colorado. Throughout the campaign season, I worked with the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project to promote passage of 114 and helped lead some of the working groups that focused on media reports, writing letters to the editor, and on understanding the opposition to wolf restoration. I'm now involved in helping to ensure that CPW follows through with an aggressive and effective reintroduction effort. Wolves used to live all across Colorado in the west, and in the west now they're limited to the northern Rockies, Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, and also a small struggling population down in Arizona and New Mexico. Restoring wolves to Colorado will help restore our ecosystems. It'll allow wolves to move freely across the Rockies, all the way from the Arctic to central Mexico, and will return a native species that should never have been wiped out. We made an ethical, moral, and ecological mistake by removing wolves. We have the chance to fix that mistake. Another major issue I'm working on is bighorn sheep management in Colorado, especially interactions between bighorns and domestic sheep on our public lands. The big issue is that domestic sheep carry diseases that have devastated bighorn populations over the last 200 years. Most people don't know this, but bighorns were probably our most common large mammal before European settlement. Now they're a struggling shadow of what they were. Other concerns revolve around the activities of Wildlife Services, the federal agency that does predator control, much of that on public lands in areas that are used for domestic livestock grazing. Another issue is that CPW, because of the political influence of the ranching industry, can't be the strong advocates they need to be for bighorns, and they need to be able to do that. One action that's being taken is to pay sheep producers to give up allotments on public lands that are particularly dangerous for bighorns because of how close they are to domestic sheep grazing. The Endlick Mesa allotment, which is between Electra Lake and Emerald Lake, was bought out earlier this year, and other allotments in the Weminuche Wilderness will be targeted in the future. Bighorn advocates are also working to improve CPW's management in multiple ways, and we hope to restore bighorns to much more of their native range over time. I'm also working on providing comments on oil and gas issues and other public lands management issues that relate to wildlife. I'd love to talk to any of our members who are interested in the issues I'm working on, so give me a call or send me an email, and let's talk about wildlife. Thank you.
Hey folks, my name is Marcel Gazdenbeid, and I'm your Animas River Keeper with San Juan Citizens Alliance. If you're unfamiliar with riverkeepers, we're essentially dedicated water body advocates. And in my case, I'm a full-time dedicated advocate for the Animas River, which flows from Silverton, Colorado, through Durango, Colorado, and the Southern Ute Tribe, and then into New Mexico, where it joins the San Juan River in Farmington. It's a beautiful, important river and really a cornerstone of the communities that live in the Animas Basin. It provides us with drinking water, irrigation water, river recreation like rafting or fishing. But like most rivers, it's also facing some difficult challenges, right? We have pollution issues from metals from hard rock mine sites at the headwaters of the river. Further downstream, we have issues with nutrients, sediment, impairments for high temperature, and E. coli bacteria problems. But the good news is we're working on these problems. I'm a water quality guy. I used to work for the US Geological Survey on water quality issues. And for my Animas program, I work on water quality and river health, water policy and management issues, and recreational issues like access and opportunity. And from Silverton, Colorado to Farmington, New Mexico, I work with a lot of good, passionate people that are working to mitigate our pollution issues or prevent them from happening in the first place. We have projects to help educate the public on some of the issues facing the river. And we also organize fun events, fun river events, like a raft race on the lower Animas River, or multi-day group trips, camping out on public lands between Colorado and New Mexico. One of the larger projects I've been working on over the last 4 years has been engaging the Environmental Protection Agency and other federal and state agencies in the Superfund cleanup of abandoned mine sites at the headwaters of the river. The Animas headwaters have been a federal Superfund site overseen by the EPA since 2016, which was designated after EPA triggered the Gold King mine spill in August of 2015. You may remember this event. It made international news, turned the entire Animas River bright orange after the release of 3 million gallons of toxic wastewater, carrying 540 tons of metals into the river system. And for our part over the last 4 years, we've done things like demand full funding for the EPA and its Superfund program. The current administration has tried to cut funding each of the last 4 years. We facilitated community involvement and oversight of the process by forming a community advisory group for the site with partner organizations. And we've also advocated for science and science-informed decision-making at the site. I've done that through technical comments I provided to EPA, one-on-one discussions with EPA scientists and project managers, and by helping members of San Juan Citizens Alliance and the public comment on important decisions that will impact the long-term health of the Animas. Most recently, for example, EPA proposed a new repository above Silverton, Colorado, to store mine waste and treatment waste from the water treatment plant that we have up there. It's a really important step in the process, but one that needs to be done carefully and with considerations for the health of our communities and for the health of the river. I provided EPA with technical comments related to that decision, but we also engaged San Juan Citizens Alliance members, and they sent over 200 individual letters urging EPA to use the best available science and to make the safety of our communities and the health of the river a priority. And I think that speaks to the power of our program, right? If you ever have questions about the Animas or any of the projects that we're working on, please feel free to reach out. If you're interested in volunteering or helping out with any of the things I've discussed here or anything related to the Animas River, please feel free to reach out to me or become a member of San Juan Citizens Alliance.
We're in Waterflow, New Mexico, which is northwestern New Mexico in the Four Corners region. We're basically kind of right where Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado meet. Yeah, so historically this is sort of like the big brown cloud, and I think that when the astronauts were up on the moon, they could see the plume from the Four Corners power plant, and it's a long legacy that goes back to the 60s. It's sort of interesting because this is an energy export zone. This area, because the coal plants and the coal mines are right next to each other, there was this idea that coal-fired derived electricity was cheap, and I think that when it's all tallied up, all the externalities, including public health and including the detrimental aspects of the brown cloud and the haze, that it's been very expensive and it's really taken a toll, and so now we have an opportunity to rectify that. Our organization, San Juan Citizens Alliance, and other organizations worked real hard over the past couple of years with the Energy Transition Act, where there's an opportunity to replace these retiring coal-fired power plants, such as the San Juan Generating Station, which is slated for retirement in 2022, with renewables. And so behind us, there's actually a proposal for a 372 megawatt solar facility, and we think it's a really pretty much an optimal location because of the fact of the proximity to substation and transmission lines. Some of the transmission lines go westward, some of them go south, and there's a real premium with those stranded assets. And then the solar facilities would give us sort of the opportunity to replace the tax base and provide for the local schools. And it's, I think, a really important and transformative part of the transition. What we're looking at between the Energy Transition Act and the Shiprock Solar Project, which is proposed by a company called Photosol, we're looking at about 500 megawatts of solar. And we're also looking at kind of the advent of storage, battery storage. And we think that this area could be like a hub for energy storage. And so we're hoping that you're looking at ground zero for where this can go down.
Hi, my name is Katie Pellicor, and I'm the Alliance's Communication Manager, and I also work on our Colorado Energy Program. So for that, I work with our electric cooperative here in Southwest Colorado, which is La Plata Electric Association, or LPEA. We get our electricity from LPEA, and in turn, they buy power from Tri-State Generation and Transmission. Right now, LPA is stuck in a long-term, restrictive, expensive contract with Tri-State that forces them to pay high rates for dirty, expensive, coal-fired power. If we want to change our power supply so that our communities can breathe easier, we have to start at the LPA board. Well, that's what we did. Over the last few years, San Juan Citizens Alliance has informed and recruited people to attend and speak at the monthly LPA board meetings. These speakers advocate for cleaner, cheaper power that prioritizes public health and our environment. The Alliance has also supported active, forward-thinking candidates for the LPA board for the past 3 election seasons, transforming the board and energizing LPA's path towards a more sustainable energy future. We also send and mobilize member comments on state and federal rulemaking processes for clean energy. Since the Alliance has been involved at LPA, the co-op has set a goal to reduce its carbon footprint, and it's embarked on a 3-pronged strategy to attain cheaper, cleaner power. Tri-State has also started a belated transition away from fossil fuels, and in the coming years, as the price of coal skyrockets and the cost of renewables continues to go down, we expect to see coal plants across Colorado start to shut down. Our work here is still not over, though. LPA still has a long, rocky road to navigate as they work for cleaner, cheaper power that benefits members like us. We will continue to work on these elections. We're going to keep mobilizing public comments, and we'll just help keep the board accountable on their path to renewable energy and lower rates.
Hi, I'm Jimbo Buick-Root. I'm the Lands and Forest Protection Program Manager for San Juan Citizens Alliance. My job includes tracking all of the projects, planning, etc., on the San Juan National Forest and the Tres Rios Field Office of the Bureau of Land Management, basically from Wolf Creek Pass to the Utah line and south to the New Mexico line and north to the Divide. Today I'm in the HD Mountains again. The HD Mountains are east of Bayfield. They're about a 50,000 acre range, and amazingly 25,000 acres of the HDs are protected by the Colorado roadless area, the HD Mountains. Those protections are not necessarily guaranteed, and it's been the Alliance efforts over the years with their staff and members that have helped to continue protections for the HD Mountain area. As I visit the HDs today, like San Juan Citizens Alliance staff and members have for decades to ensure protection of the HDs, there are numerous natural gas related projects on the planning table. Some of these need to be modified, and some of them, frankly, just need to be stopped. On the northern flank of the HDs is a proposed pipeline to link existing and proposed well sites. This pipeline would cross national forest lands, private landowners' properties, as well as Colorado roadless area, the HD Mountains roadless area. To the southeast of Bayfield, there's a proposed El Toro compressor plant that would consist of 10 1,500 horsepower compressors for natural gas production. That compressor plant doesn't have any pipelines permitted going to it or going from it, but those plants at this time are still going forward. On the south side of the HEs is a proposed lengthy pipeline. It's actually a dual pipeline with natural gas and wastewater that will connect existing wells and many new wells all the way up to the highest peaks in the HD mountains, up a very, very steep hillside and through archaeological areas. All these proposals need either a modification or, as I've said before, to completely eliminate them. The Alliance has made a long-term commitment to the well-being, ecological health, and sustainability of the HE Mountains. We have worked together with local landowners, wildlife enthusiasts, and others to make sure that the HDs stay as intact as long as possible, period.
San Juan Citizens Alliance first outlined a vision for protecting a connected landscape of wild lands and wildlife corridors back in the 1990s. We called this our Citizens Plan for the Wild San Juans. And in 2014, we achieved a major goal with the passage of the Hermosa Creek Watershed Protection Act as a first step in implementing our vision for wildland protection in the San Juan Mountains. The Hermosa Creek Watershed Protection Act brought lasting protection to over 130,000 acres. That was the entirety of the Hermosa Creek watershed. And about the same time, we also started working to focus on another phase of our wildlands vision, and that's filling in the gaps within the landscape of protected lands high in the San Juan Mountains. And we focused in on the mountains between Silverton and Telluride that surround Ice Lake Basin and the headwaters of Mineral Creek that fill the gap between the Wemmonich Wilderness to the east and the Lizard Head Wilderness to the west. The Ice Lake Basin and Mineral Creek headwaters, which are called the Sheep Mountain Special Management Area, were included in the San Juan Mountains Wilderness Act that was introduced in 2009, and that's since been wrapped into a larger statewide package called the Colorado Outdoor Recreation and Economy Act, or the CORE Act. So the CORE Act passed through the House of Representatives in October 2019, and then again it was passed as an amendment added on to the National Defense Authorization Act in July of 2020. So our fingers are crossed that the Senate will also agree with what the House of Representatives did and pass the CORE Act through the defense bill by the end of 2020. And if so, we'll gain permanent protections for 60,000 acres of some of the last best remaining unprotected mountain landscapes in the high San Juan Mountains. At the same time, we've been working for the last 20 years to achieve protections for our desert canyons and mountains that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management here in southwest Colorado. Thanks to the leadership of Colorado Representative Diana DeGette, the Colorado Wilderness Act also passed the House of Representatives twice in the past year, and it also is included as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. The Colorado Wilderness Act is an all-encompassing piece of wilderness legislation that would bring protections to BLM desert wildlands across the entirety of Colorado. These were first identified by the Bureau of Land Management way back in 1980 as wilderness study areas because of their outstanding wilderness character. All told, the Colorado Wilderness Act would designate 36 new BLM wilderness areas that span 660,000 acres. But that's still less than 10% of the land that the BLM manages in Colorado, and it's only 1% of the land base of the state of Colorado. In southwest Colorado, that means we'd gain protection for the most remote parts of Canyons of the Ancients National Monument, like Cross Canyon, which is one of the longest wilderness desert watersheds in the state of Colorado. It would also bring protection to spectacular sections of the Dolores River Canyon, like Slick Rock Canyon, south of Bedrock. And it would bring wilderness protection also to some of our most spectacular badland wilderness ecosystems, like that around McKenna Peak in the Disappointment Valley. And the bill also includes a number of areas in the lower Dolores River corridor down near Gateway, like Soamup Mesa, which is a spectacular mesa that rises high above the Dolores River Canyon. So our fingers are crossed that we'll get final action on the Colorado Wilderness Act also by the end of 2020, but if we don't, we know we have tremendous momentum heading into 2021, and we're hopeful to finally see protection for these last best sections of Colorado's BLM desert wildlands early in 2021. It's a crucial time now, as you can tell. I mean, we could finally fill in the remaining gaps of protected landscapes high in the San Juan Mountains, and we could gain our first desert BLM wilderness areas here in southwest Colorado. But our success depends on your support. We've really appreciated all the volunteer effort that people have put into writing letters and attending public meetings, and of course we couldn't do it without your financial contributions as well. So it's a tremendous team effort that that has gotten us where we are so far, and we look forward to partnering with you all going forward in the coming year. Thanks so much.